Welcome to the Reddit stories. r/Askreddit. Redditors, what are your most interesting rumored stories? I'm pretty sure I used to live with a hobbit. Man about 5'1", curly brown hair, constantly cheerful demeanor, never wore shoes, inside or out. Literally slept on the floor in what can only be explained as a nest of blankets. Started a garden and encouraged me to eat his tomatoes all the time. Would bring home samosas and other goodies, always giving me half just because. He and his wife had a dream of living off the grid in a tiny home on a truck. I love he's doing well. She was majorly depressed. She worked a lot and for very little money, so she would mostly come home and lock herself in her room. At some point, she stopped cleaning or doing laundry. She worked at a child care center and at some point contracted impetigo. Gross, but treatable. She wouldn't get it treated, however, because it was too expensive. So I lived in fear I would contract it, let alone the other kids she was watching. She told her work it was being treated and was no longer contagious. They just believed her. She had these massive, crusty patches all over her face and just didn't care. After 5 whole weeks, she finally went to the doctor. Things were tense until her mom came to visit a few weeks later and convinced her to be committed. She had been sending suicidal messages to her mom every day for weeks. Her mom paid her rent for the next 3 months until the lease was up and she moved back home. Never spoke again. Hope she is doing better. There are plenty, but one of my roommates used to sleepwalk and sleep talk almost every night, and I was the only one who'd be awake whenever it would happen. I'd witness her cleaning our fridge, sealing our open bag of chips, and I'd hear her quote Shakespeare in her sleep. What made her go back to bed was me asking her to sleep, and she'd look at me and close her eyes. Whenever I asked her if she recalled any of it, the answer was always no. My roommate in college claimed he was involved with the mafia. He was constantly sweaty, was very jumpy, and always had a lot of cash in his car. He never was around on the weekends, and I never saw him drink. Strangest of all is that he never once slept in his room. He was always on the couch by the door. He eventually told me that it was because if someone ever broke in looking for him, he wanted them to find him right away, so no one else would get hurt. I still don't know if he was telling the truth, but nonetheless I always locked my bedroom door at night. My freshman year college roommate was a random pairing. This kid partied all night and slept all day, legit wouldn't wake up until 5 PM. He goes MIA for like a week. I call my mom because I'm not sure he's even alive. She searches to see if he has been arrested. Before she can call me back, the cops are knocking at our door and ask, "Have you seen?" And I say no. Mom calls me back a few minutes later. He had been booked for robbery at a convenience store which was in our dorm building. He tried to hide in an air vent. He made the front page of the campus newspaper, was expelled, and I got the whole dorm to myself for the rest of the fall and spring semester. We met when we showed up for dorm room assignments our freshman year of college. Almost 50 years later, we are still the closest of friends. I recently attended his daughter's wedding. A grand affair, because he happens to be uber wealthy. At one point I found myself choking up, and it wasn't for the bride and groom, it was for John and me. How far we've come from that first awkward handshake a half century ago. I spent over a year falling asleep to the angry, muffled, whisper but not really arguments between my roomie and his girlfriend. Just muffled enough that I couldn't understand what the problem was, but they were clearly not happy together. So I'd just lie in bed wondering, what's my duty of care here? Like they weren't violent with each other, and it wasn't like one person was terrorizing the other. It was just 2 young people in a consensual and mutual spiral of despair. I had a college roommate who was obsessed with CSI. She had a CSI pillow and sheets/blankets. She refused to turn on any lights and kept all blinds shut. She hated light and would sigh loudly if I would turn the lights on to do anything. I went to college right around when you needed a college email to make a Facebook, and she would tell me that Facebook is how they spy on you. She said she would never have a MySpace or anything of the like. She might have been right on that one, and she would always say I was a sheep and that I would have my identity stolen by them. My other roommate, we were 4 with 2 bedrooms and a common area, was extremely loud at all hours, and if you ever asked her to keep it down, even very politely, she would purposely start doing cartwheels and banging on things and singing. She claimed to be Jay Leno's niece. One more, I had a roommate that slept with a new guy every weekend and we could hear her loudly through the wall. We would tell her we heard her and she vehemently denied every time that she slept with anyone. Come on, girl. I went to UC Santa Cruz, and when I was a junior, my housemate and I had a situation with our third housemate that left us in a bind where we needed to find a new third quickly before the first of the month when rent was due. We went on Craigslist and ended up with this guy. He said he was a hairdresser, and he actually was. Unfortunately, that wasn't his only gig. We all lived together for 4 months. Things started going south pretty quickly, and he kept having trouble coming up with the money to pay rent. Finally, things in the house got so bad that I told our landlord that I thought my housemate and I were in danger and could he please let us out of our rental agreement early. He took pity on us and agreed. That last month Stu never gave me his share of rent or utilities, but he kept telling me he would get the money soon. The last time I talked to him, he said he was going to get the money that night. You can guess by the article what happened that night. I never heard from him again. Bastard still owes me money. Freshman year of college, I was randomly assigned a roommate to share a tiny room, 11 foot x 15, I think. I was a quiet computer science student from the San Francisco area who liked video games and D&D. My assigned roommate was a huge mechanical engineering major from the south who liked his lifted truck, dip tobacco, and getting drunk as often as possible. Needless to say, the next 6 months were not fun. He left his spig cups everywhere, constantly played loud country music, and messed around with my stuff, including scratching a nasty slur into my Office Space-esque stapler. As the year went on, he seemed to get worse, probably due to finding a group of like-minded people in the dorms. Long story short, he was kicked out of the dorms about 2 weeks before the spring break. He and another guy went on a rampage through the dorm with their soft guns shooting the little whiteboard on everyone's door. For some reason, though, he was allowed to stay until the break. I stupidly left for home before he did, and when I got back my very nice gaming PC was missing. I reported it missing and told the police exactly where I thought it was, at his new place. They apparently searched it, and though they didn't find my computer, they found enough other stolen goods to get him expelled from school. Thankfully, my replacement roommate was a very nice, quiet guy, and the rest of the year went well. My college roommate didn't know how to do laundry before we started school. We had a community washer and dryer on our floor. Probably the 3rd week of school, I went down to get a soda from the machine and I walk in and there are bubbles 4 inches deep on the floor. My roommate walks in behind me to check his laundry. He had put 3 full scoops of Tide in the washer with his load. I had to take him to an off-campus laundromat to wash all of the excess soap out of his clothes. Lived in a dorm with this Mormon guy who just came home from being a missionary. He was the most sexually repressed person I'd ever seen. This dude had never heard of masturbating. He'd stay up until like 2 in the morning looking at girls' Facebook photos and muttering, "Oh man, she's so hot." He was super creepy around women. He'd sit next to them and try and put his arm over their shoulders. He had real creepy, rappy vibes, and he also had some kind of fungus that stunk up the apartment, so I got the yuck out the next semester. This is my only roommate story. After this, I swore never again. A childhood friend and her boyfriend. He was a chef line cook at a chain restaurant who would cook mediocre meals when the urge took him, which took damn near every pot and pan in the kitchen to make, and ducked off without cleaning up after himself. He also had a kitten really, who he never bought food for, so I had to feed it, because I'm not a monster. She was an unemployed student, like me, who would use the cups from my dinner set as ashtrays, and load up a single plate of food, take it to her room, eat from it throughout the day, and keep it. Rinse, repeat every day, until we were out of plates. I said I'd clean them if she just brought them back to the kitchen, but now, I'd have to wait until she was out then go get them, complete with moldering food remnants. Eventually, my boyfriend joined our happy little household, and I started setting boundaries, because it was no longer 2:1. That led to a blow-up screaming match, and me and him moving out. My only regret is that I didn't take the cat. My last 2 roommates were a married man and his side chick. We lived in a shared house and the man recommended his girlfriend to the landlords after another roommate left. I had no say in it. His wife lived and worked in Germany while we live in the US, so he easily got away with it. They were cool with me, but it was very uncomfortable to watch, especially since I met his wife when she came to visit him, before I knew about the girlfriend. He was so much meaner to his wife too. He'd complain about her cooking and make her cry, but with the girlfriend he was Mr. Nice and Mr. Helpful. I don't know if the girlfriend knew he had a wife or not. I moved into a house with a guy when I was 19. We were pretty good friends, but quickly became best buds. I'm a lesbian and my GF at the time wanted to try our first strap-on experience. Being a noob, I purchased a dildo that was comically large, so we couldn't use it. So naturally, I decided to hide it under my roommate's pillow as he was out of town for the weekend. When he came home that Sunday he proudly announced he had a hookup coming over, and I was like oops, men not gonna say anything. Morning after, we get up, I'm putting coffee on the pot, and he comes out. I asked, "How was your night?" To which he replied, "Pretty good honestly," with a cheeky smile. I just sipped my coffee and smirked at him. He was like, "What did you do?" Eventually he found it, we had a few laughs, and there began a 3-year-long game of hiding this massive suction cup purple dildo in each other's things. The fridge, sock drawers, bathroom mirror, car mid consoles, etc. It stopped when his grandparents came to visit, and grandpa was met by the bit purple member staring him in the face when he went to use the bathroom. Not exactly a roommate, had to live at friend's place for 2 weeks, and he lived with a roommate. Anyway, one morning I wake up to find my friend missing. He had taken stuff too, so I asked his roommate where he is. We didn't know each other at all, and he said he went to different city for a job. So, few days pass by, and one night I was alone. I hear the doorbell ring. I open it. It's the roommate covered in blood. I just ask what happened, and he just said he passed out and fell into rose bushes. He then gets naked, and I have to clean him up and send to bed. After that we became friends. Long story short, my girlfriend and I had a roommate that was actively sober and receiving treatment/meds for his assorted mental problems. We didn't drink at home or do any drugs, so the house was a safe/clean environment for him to continue his progress. She and I left town for a 3-day music festival that my friends put on every year, but we came home after about 36 hours because the weather was terrible. We returned to find the roommate passed out naked, sprawled across the couch, covered in baby oil, with wads of Kleenex all over the place. There were 10 empty 40-ounce malt liquor bottles, some broken, a good-sized pile of cocaine smeared all over the coffee table, an ashtray filled with cigarette butts that was literally on fire, and a movie entitled Eskimo Gangbang playing on the TV at mind-bending volume. He kind of startled awake, knocking over more beer bottles, and said, "Man, you guys are home early." I barely slowed the car down when I threw him out at his parents' house an hour later. This was about 24 years ago. We haven't spoken since. I lived in a dorm room with a guy for a year and never once saw him coming from or going to the shower. It was a communal shower, several stalls in one room that the whole floor shared, and while I don't expect him to climb in the shower with me, I would have thought that sometime during the 9 months we lived together, that I'd see him come back to the room with a towel or something. Clearly he was showering. I think after that long someone who didn't would be odoriferous enough for everyone to know when he's in the building. It's not like I was never in the room either. My roommate decided to repaint her car in the garage one night, so proceeds to hand sand back the silver paint on her old Volvo and then whips out cans of red spray paint. She spent ages freehand spraying that car with the garage door closed and without any ventilation. After she'd moved out I was visiting a friend in another city and I noticed a spray painted red Volvo parked at the flat below. Turns out she'd ended up moving in with my completely unrelated friend for a while and managed to convince the old guy downstairs to buy the badly painted car. Same roommate worked shifts and would vacuum and stack dishes at 3 AM because why not? Thank you.